Critics claim that Scientology positions its way as the only way through front organisations. But Scientology says their members are active in these groups to help improve social conditions and are independent of the church. One such group, CCHR, aims to expose and eradicate the criminal acts and human rights abuses of psychiatry.
I worked for a group called the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. Hubbard saw other mental health practices as a threat to the existence of Scientology. Our aim was to eradicate the psychiatry from New Zealand society, make it a psych-free society. At the time I thought, well, what happens if we achieve that? What happens to New Zealand when somebody does need mental health care? What do we do with those people?
It's like Coke versus Pepsi. One of the first things they have to eliminate is the opposition, which is psychiatry, who at the moment are getting government funding, which Scientology would dearly love to have.
One True Path emphasises the dangers of alternate or competing beliefs and is often used with the cultic tools of fear and guilt.
Fear and guilt can be used to divide and rule. Some experts say a group or leader who makes you feel scared or guilty is trying to control you.
Now, the leaders are held up to be closer to God than you are, and they must be obeyed. If you don't obey them, then you are told that maybe God will curse you or terrible things will happen to you. There is fear involved in confronting the leaders.
There's a facade of love and euphoria and happiness and bright-eyed sparkliness and touching and closeness. But behind that, the shadow side of it, always working with fear and control. One woman had to build herself a wooden cross and carry it round because he said she was too much of a martyr.
It wasn't loving. It was attacking, and it was you're evil and you're the devil and you're going to go to hell and you're not allowed to talk to your family anymore because they're going to persecute you. And of course there's the fear of, you know, you die and you're going to hell, but it actually wasn't about that. It was like immediate fear about being treated like you were nothing. Yeah, that's what made me scared.
You try and do something out of the ordinary, something that you're told not to do, and you just feel this guilt and all this fear come on you. And that's how it's controlled. It's the mind games is the worst, you know. It's just all mind control. The more mind control they have, the more power they got, you know.
It's just like the guilt that you feel if you like swear or something. Oh no, God's going to punish me.
The new leader, James Symington, took over, and he started bringing in some pretty arrogant sort of rules and things. And all of a sudden you were being made to confess about all sorts of things. You'd have guilt and fear put on you. A lot of sexual sins, whether a couple had touched over the clothes on their genitals or under their clothes, and you'd have to get the priest come around and interrogate you, and then you would be publicly humiliated. It would be brought up in church. You kept conforming, and the leader would tell us, oh, we're substandard, we need to attain to this standard. And so you would do everything you possibly could to attain to that standard, and just when you thought you'd got there, all of a sudden they pull the rug out from under your feet and say, no, you're not good enough. And you think, oh my goodness, what else do I need to do?
Many organisations have a layer of enforcers, people who are part of the inner sanctum, whose job it is to enforce the rules.
That's what you're afraid of, those interrogation of having to stand in a room of, 100 blokes, all staring down at you, all judging you, all wanting to pull the rug from under you. Because I remember when I was 17, I was in one of those meetings because I was wanting to leave again. And these men's meeting, I'm the most evil, wicked thing that walked the earth. When I leave, I'm going to have a major accident, I'm going to go to hell. So I've got this whole fear thing, right? And I get up and go down and pack my bags. Then, reverse psychology. He sent my sisters and mother down to cry and plead with me, why are you leaving, you know what I mean? Well, that time it's, 10 hours later and I'm sheer exhausted, you break. So I conformed.
The pressure went on to expand, sell, to get more people in, to get more money in, to sell books. I think the worst thing that happened to me at that time was I was pregnant with my son, and everything was measured in statistics. They were dropping for the counselling hours. L. Ron Hubbard's writings say If the statistics aren't going up, then there's a person in there actively suppressing.
Jenny, I need you to explain about the stats.
I was called to a committee of evidence, which is like a court. You're between a rock and a hard place. If you say, no, I'm not actively suppressing them, look at me, I'm here every day working my butt off for you guys, then you're saying the technology's wrong, which is actually worse.
I'm beginning to wonder if you're doing it intentionally.
But I am working really long
The
days.
stats are down, Jenny.
I'll never forget just sitting there thinking, how can you say that to me? I'm here every day for no pay, for 12 hours a day, working with people who are unusual to say the least. You actually begin to wonder if things have happened to you that you didn't know. When you were asleep, you don't know if you've actually been kidnapped by aliens and planted thoughts in your mind to destroy Scientology. You don't know. You don't trust anybody, you don't even trust yourself. So you're on the cans and you might have never had thoughts of leaving. If the needle's reading and they go, oh, tell me more about that, then the story comes into your mind, whether you're making it up or it's your imagination, and you have this memory and you say it all.
I was 8 years old. I thought the world was going to come to an end. I stopped.
And then you go, oh my God, I don't remember that happening, but it was there.
Some organisations put potential members through a process by which actually it might sound like therapy, it might sound like trying to work out what we can do to help you, but actually a lot of it is organised around trying to get information that can ultimately be used to manipulate or to blackmail that person.
Have you ever had adulterous thoughts?
Yes, at times.
Have you had an affair?
Have you murdered people? Have you stolen money? Basically anything that anyone could have done that they perhaps wouldn't want everybody to know about. Scientology will tell you that it's kept securely in their, locked up thing to be never shown to the public or never discussed or anything like that. And that's far from the truth. As soon as somebody gets out of Scientology and speaks out about it, they will, what they call, cull your folders, which means they go through looking for the stuff that you've brought out in your confessionals that would be embarrassing. Now, for example, if you had an affair, then of course just hinting that you know that and the person is still married to the partner that they weren't faithful to is enough to get them to shut up. And that's done often in Scientology.
Scientology leaders say they do not believe that staff are made to feel guilty for leaving, nor that they are put under undue pressure to recruit or sell courses. They say the use or release of private information is strictly against the Auditor's Code, which requires auditors to treat communications with total confidentiality. They say the Church of Scientology has gone to considerable lengths to ensure that these records remain strictly confidential. But former members say character assassination was used to keep them silent, compliant, and destroy their self-esteem.
The lower your self-worth, the easier it is to control you. And the easiest way to grind you down is out-and-out abuse. Cult watchers call this character assassination.
You'll ask a question or question leaders, and they will attack your character. So rather than give you a rational response, they'll actually attack you. You're a bad person. There is something wrong with you. You're prideful. The reason you are thinking this is because you want to take my position and you want everyone to think you're great. You really need to go away and think about this, you despicable person. And if you come across character assassination, you're almost certainly dealing with a cultic environment.
When you're new, everything's smiley and happy. Now, the moment you sign a contract to be on staff, when things don't go right, you are responsible for it.
Do you have bad thoughts?
No.
Do you have suppressive thoughts?
Absolutely not.
I was taken into a room by 3 women who were all dressed in these like Navy-style uniforms. They had their reasons, which they weren't making clear to me, but their job was to make me break down.
Have you ever killed someone?
No.
Have you ever tried hurting Scientology?
No, I'm not lying.
Masturbated?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's just endless. Just whatever you wouldn't want somebody to yell at you, they were yelling it out.
I had a view of myself that was really encouraged by Bert. If I left, I would just become depressed.
You'll struggle without us, you know.
It was a fear for me. And so he would feed that fear. If you leave, you'll become depressed, you won't cope. Other people told me that he would say, if you leave, you'll get cancer.
It's like an abusive relationship. You keep hoping it's going to get better. If you just give a little bit more, if you just try a little bit harder, this is going to get better. It's all your fault that he's cruel to you. It's all your fault that this is not working out. It is textbook abusive relationship material.
Dad had a basketball game in the morning before church, and they'd arrange these types of activities to encourage outsiders to come along. And the next thing you know, I had a couple of the other women say, right, you need to come with us. They got me in a car, didn't tell me where they were taking me. It was almost like a planned kidnapping, that's how it felt. It felt like I was not there out of my own free will. I had no idea where I was, and it was a really scary experience. So yeah, they took me in this car, they sat me down, they made me do a spiritual timeline, they took me through all the different parts of my life, and then they said to me, all these things are really great, but none of it means you're a Christian.
You have to let go of everything from the past.
Well, Rachel.
They started talking about how my parents were going to hate me for joining this group. They were going to go to hell. Talking about all my different youth leaders I'd had in my past and how they were all going to hell. And I was stuck in this house. I had no idea where I was, and I was just in tears. And it's the whole breaking thing that they do. Then it's a case of, we've broken you and now we're going to fix it. They looked at that as the catalyst for me then joining the church. For me, it was the catalyst to leave. It was the final point where I said, no, this is not cool.
The Auckland Central Church of Christ has broken away from the ICOC and says it is no longer affiliated with those who operate in a controlling or cult-like fashion. At the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, David Koresh's character attacks on his followers led them to something far more serious.
It'll come down to a gunfight. That was David Koresh's message. Last time I was there, he was waving an AK-47 around and pointing it straight at me, threatening my family. It's another way of brainwashing. Follow the rest of us, and no harm will come to you. You're living in a community who teaches love and sacrifice, but they also taught a lot about war, which was a big part of David Koresh's teachings at the end.
Most cults have this idea as central to their thinking that they're being persecuted by some outside force, and it's usually when this paranoia gets too big, this is when we see the real tragedies.
Well, I knew where he was going. It was all in the teachings. And that was when I started seeing ladies being separated from their partners, and they lived in different quarters, and the men lived in different quarters altogether. And the separations of children and their parents. If somebody tells you this is okay because God says it's okay, and what they're saying is that, oh, you're allowed to go and have sex with a 12-year-old, and not just that one, and the mother, and, and you carry on. Once you cross over that, you're in no man's land. I was surprised that the government agencies that went there hadn't had the ability to actually listen, because we did warn them. What was sad for me was that there were those that I went to on the same trip who wanted to stay, and I told them from my heart that I was leaving and they needed to leave with me. But two decided to stay on, and I came back with my partner at the time, and that was it.